Hola guys, and welcome to Yemi Chats. I must apologize for not posting the link up yesterday. I didn't do it as it's supposed to come in every Monday. I didn't do it yesterday, so a day late, but nevertheless, I'm keeping myself accountable. And today we're talking about the bill that was denied by the reps in the House, and it's a mouthful, so I'm going to read it verbatim. A bill for an act to regulate international studies for wards and children of Nigerian public office, to strengthen indigenous institutions, provide educational services for national development, and for related matters. Now, this legislation was brought to the floor by Representative Sergius Ogun, and the long and short of the story is that he believes that if public officers, who are the ones who are to make sure that our educational systems, etc., 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 are working and working compared to global standards, are the ones who are using public funds, in quote, to send their children abroad for studies. And he's saying that, I think inadvertently he's also saying that, I don't say that, I'm just thinking that he's saying that public officers can't afford, especially at this time where the dollar has hit the roof, to send their children to school abroad with the monies that they make. So if that is true, and what he's saying is, and I'm going to quote him verbatim, he says it would build a better society by developing institutions, facilitate the realization of the fundamental objectives of policies of state as enshrined in Chapter 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended Cap C23 LFN 2004. Long and short of the story. If you send your children to, as a public office holder, if you send your children to the universities that are currently on strike and have been on strike for at least 3 or 4 months now, and you know that they have got to get an education at a stipulated time, right, or in a stipulated time, I beg your pardon, then you have a vested interest in making sure that the education system works. But if you just take monies, or you've made money, whichever way it is, whether legally or illegally, as a public office holder, and you're sending your children or your wards to schools in England, America, Dubai, Saudi Arabia, wherever it is, Ukraine as well, I mean, before the war, then what's going to happen to the facilities that we have here? And I kind of, I see his point, right? Because ASU has been on strike for as long as I can remember. I think ASU has been going on strike maybe since the 80s, right? I know that they've been fighting about their payments, so their salaries, their entitlements, which do not make any sense in this current economy, and hasn't made sense for a long time now. They've been fighting the same battle for upwards of 2 decades, right? And then we, the policy holders, or they, the policy holders, the people who are supposed to legislate, the people who are supposed to make sure that things run as smoothly as they can, are not interested because their children are not affected, majority of them, right? This bill apparently was also brought to the floor in 2017 or 2018. It was scuttled, for lack of a better word, by Gbajabiamila, who said, him and a few other people came together and said, you know what, that this bill needed to be stepped down. By the way, Sergius refused to step down this bill in 2022, so of course they voted, and voice vote, everybody said no. that the bill had to be stepped down. This is in 2017, 2018, that because it infringed on people's fundamental human rights to choose to do better for their families. Okay, so let's argue on the point that it does infringe on people's fundamental human rights, the right to choose, right? Freedom to choose. What are we saying when we are choosing to stand on our fundamental human rights where it concerns the education of a larger part of the population? It's a minuscule part of the population who can afford to send their children abroad. And if we're going by what Sergius Ogun is saying, or not really saying, then it means that the monies that they make, legally or illegally, by being a rep, that's what they're using. And they're also using public funds, he was bold to say in one of his statements. And an argument came up that, some of the officers do not use public funds. I personally would like to know how they're not using public funds. If you are earning, let's say, in the region of 300 to 400,000 a month, and I think the salaries are more than that. So I'm going to do a part 2 of this where I'm going to research the salaries, and then we can see if their salaries can really afford to pay for their children's education abroad, right? This bill was also brought to the floor of the House in 2012, I beg your pardon, by PDP Kanu legislator Mohammed Bashir. It passed the second reading. The bill was to ban children of public officers from studying abroad. This is October 4, 2012. Education sector, he said that the education sector had serious challenges and that the Senate had to adopt drastic measures. And the people who, of course, voted against it said that some public officers do not control public funds and that it is their own legal salaries, etc., that allows them to send their children to the best, their children, I beg your pardon, to the best schools that they can afford. So, I mean, we can argue back and forth. We can say that, yes, people's fundamental human rights are being tampered with. But if we look at it on a whole and in a larger scale, there's the argument that a lot of schools, without a doubt, I mean, unless you're blind and you're not living in Nigeria, without a doubt, for some of us who went to schools that were government owned and are still government owned 30, 40, 50 years ago, we cannot compare the standards then to the standards now, right? The hostels are overpopulated. There are challenges with water, clean water, by the way. There are challenges with electricity. There are challenges with the level and the quality of the teachers that teach the children. There are challenges with the teachers are not, or they're saying, people say, murmur that the teachers don't teach properly in class so that they can earn extra income by doing extra tutorial lessons for these same children, right? People in authority in most government schools take it as a badge of honor, and they actually misappropriate the funds that go to the school, that are sent to the schools by federal government, and use this for their personal shenanigans, right? So if the average man off the street, who no longer is middle class, is not even low class anymore, because there's no class right now, can't afford to eat 3 square meals a day, how is he going to be able to send his child to a government school or a private school in Nigeria? Talk less of a school abroad. The dollar is climbing. It's in the black market. I think it's almost 700 naira to the dollar. Let's not even talk about the pound, right? So am I surprised that the bill was scuttled and voted against? No, I'm not. because we fight for what we're benefiting from. I am actually pleasantly surprised that somebody sees it the other way around, and that this is not the first person who has brought this bill to the floor of the Senate. I will end on this. 2023 is right around the corner. We have a chance to change the caliber of people who represent us at the Senate. Federal, state, we have that. Our vote counts. Don't be fooled by the person that is telling you that your vote does not count. If your vote does not count, then they will not be paying people to vote. Search through the people that say they're running, right? Whether it's governor, whether it's president, whether it's the Senate, whether it's the House of Reps, whether it's state or federal. Find the person that aligns with your values. If your core values if that person does not meet up with your core values, then don't vote for the person. Find the person that meets up with your core values. Let's change the narrative. Let us hold our officials accountable to what they say they are going to do. That is the only way that we can bring to some sort of level playing field everybody. Will everybody still be able to afford sending their children abroad? No. But at least if the people who are supposed to build these institutions make sure that these institutions work and are comparable to global standards and global best practices, if they send their children to schools in Nigeria, I assure you that there will be a change. Because that was what was happening 40, 50, 60 years ago. Majority of the people in public office sent their children to the government secondary, university, schools all over Nigeria. And at that point in time, we got the best education from the legal means, salaries of our parents. So that's it for this week. Join me again next week as we tackle, or rather, I give you my opinions on a bill or an issue that is trending in the Nigerian news space. My name is Ayemi Olivia, and this has been Ayemi Olivia Chats. You guys have a great week.